very honest with you. And you know, I was talking to somebody recently, and actually 15 years too late. After the dissolution of Nelson Tills, clearly we knew, Samantha made it clear, you guys are no longer, you know,
yes,
you're close to us, but
we're Dutch.
We don't have any responsibility, any obligations to us, to you. And from there on, you see that every decision that they've made is in their own interest. When there's a commercial company that has to make a profit, like I explained to somebody yesterday, the Caribbean is littered with airlines that have failed because of the government or significant government interference. So we don't want the same thing from Winnie. You know, there's interference, and then the airline has to fold, and then there's no connectivity at all to say. But at the same time, I think we can't just wait for the Dutch government to take steps. We can't, because it's too pressing. And you know, when we spoke to one of our trainers, you know, he was mentioning that in the community where he worked, they hired a public relations executive to go in and personally speak to all second chamber parties in second chamber to convince them of what was important for them. And I think that's something we might need to do now, considering the urgency in the situation. You know, it's a new idea, you may have to think about it for some time, but I think it's something worth looking into. Because, you know, we go to Nellis and we speak with them, we introduce the idea, but then we're not there. And, you know, there's always a fine in Nellis. That's why there's a government, you know, there's an election every couple of years. And I think we really need to start convincing. That's why, for instance, I asked for a response, so that they have a response. And, you know, like he said, they've made an A4 expressing, hey, this is what we need, why it's important. And they just went around selling that idea until changes are made. So maybe that's something that we also need to do. You know, there was a big fire on social media this week because of, you know, the prices, and rightfully so. It's unbearable, it's ridiculous, it's all those nice words, crazy words, but nothing's being done. And then you say that the Dutch government says, yeah, we need additional information. But when I read the PSO study, back to front, and it outlines clearly why it's important and that it is necessary. And at the end, you see what they say? It's a lack of political will and political commitment. And this, to me, is just the Hague kicking the can down the road just one more time.
Thank you, Councilmember Charles, Councilmember Every.
Yeah, on the same topic, it's good that you brought the topic up. We did meet with the Island Council of Statia last week, and this was a very important topic. I think it's relevant for both islands. And one of the things that came forward, I think, for us and also for them, was the rep on the shareholders rep. Do you know this person? Is there a name of this person? And if it exists, do they even exist? Correct. And the next thing that you mentioned about the document, I do agree, since we're all going to the Netherlands, that was also something that we jointly agreed upon with the Council of Station, is that we should have the same message, or the same, everybody speak with the same voice. And you referenced a document. Is that a commitment that you will have, that we can have something done before we leave? Yes, I think so. If we can all agree to that we have
it will be broader than just.
Correct. No, I agree. But at least we have something where we're all speaking the same language on all levels. So, and in that light, I would also suggest to reach out to your counterpart on Statia as well, so that they strengthen numbers.
I mean, we have different priorities, but at least with connectivity, it's a shared problem.
Correct.
That's
Commissioner Segers.
I do have an initial reaction to the proposal by Councilmember Charles about involving like a type of PR company to help bring our message forward. And my initial reaction is a bit. I don't know if that's a move that we may need to make now, simply because I speak to people in the Netherlands all the time. More recently when we were on to Vlieland, I believe the access that we have to members of parliament and within ministries, believe it or not, is greater than the access that a regular municipality has in the Netherlands. And I'm not sure I want a PR firm replacing that, or replacing that type of relationship that we're able to build person to person. I don't know if that's the right message that we want to send. All of a sudden, we're paying lobbyists to speak on our behalves, even though it's our message that we're trying to tell. But again, that's more so based on conversations that I've had with people that are in similar positions that I am in, that say that the access that we have is for sure bigger than the access that they have, and they're the ones living within the European part of the Netherlands. So that's just an initial reaction. That's not me saying that I'm completely against it. That's just me saying that maybe it's something that we need to think further about before we actually make that type of commitment.
Is that idea?
Yeah.
And put it out there. It's not to say. I'm asking for a permit.
Yeah.
Those were the questions posed, the oral questions posed in accordance with Article 36 by Councilman Charles and the answers. We now proceed to agenda point number 5, incoming correspondence and announcements list from October the 4th until October the 31st, 2025. We go to 5.1, Island Council incoming and outgoing correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to flag BHC 343, 2025, ICM, strengthening local public health role in healthcare referral monitoring. For that one.
Okay, good. That's for 5.1. Now, 5.2, Executive Council decision list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to flag the meeting October 21st, 3.1.2, Integrity Summit.
Okay, thank you. And we will just that. And 5.3, written questions to the Island Executive Council, of course, Article 35 of the Rules of Procedure. And then 5.4, answers to written questions to the Executive Council. Okay. We then move on to agenda point number 6, Island Council Proposal 2025, number 19, the third budget amendment. So the proposal received from the Executive Council is to approve the third budget amendment. This was just dealt with in the Central Committee meeting. So we need to further discuss it over. Agreed upon to make it the hammer piece, in accordance with the article, the rules of procedure of the Island Council. No vote is required. No vote was requested, so this can be adopted without a roll call vote. So the third budget amendment 2025 is approved. We then move on to agenda point number 7, motions. We received a motion by Island Council member Mr. Julio Everett, and I'll allow him to elucidate his motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I read the motion, I would just like to make a quick statement. First of all, this motion is presented to bring equality and clarity to all travel and per diem rules. The current framework dates back to 2011 and has not been updated since then. And over time, this has led to differences in how travel per diem allowances are applied across government, and something that I have questioned before, but for which I have never received a satisfactory answer. And today, we have somewhat some different rules depending on where in government one falls. This creates unnecessary inequality, from my purview, and administrative burdens and public perception risks. With one unified framework, we treat everyone on the same basis. We comply with the Rijksrekening and obligation for civil servants, and we create more transparency and administrative efficiency for the organization. The adjustments for transportation allowance reflect realistic cost developments and mandatory mandatory travel insurance protects both the traveler and the public budget in today's higher risk travel environment. This motion therefore does not increase privilege, it reduces inequality and establishes one clear standard. And importantly, Mr. Chairman, I wish to stress that this is not a special rule made up by Julio or Island Council Member Julio Everett. This motion is designed to promote openness, transparency, and clarity, so that the public is fully aware of how travel and per diem arrangements are handled within government. It is also not a special rule for the Island Council, as we must also establish our own travel policy, which is currently being worked on by the Island Registrar's Office. Exceptions can exist only when justified based on function and responsibility, but the default basis is equal rules for all categories in government. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I now proceed to reading of the motion. So in our meeting dated today, November 19th, 2025, considering that equal treatment, fairness, and reasonableness are fundamental principles of good governance, Executive Council Decision, the 24th of February 2011, number 15-2011/2011, currently governs travel and per diem allowances for Executive Council members and civil servants, as well as Island Council. Travel allowances for civil servants must comply with the Rijksrekening, and which permits business class travel for flights of 6 hours or more. The Island Council is authorized under the World Best to adopt its own travel policy ordinance separately, and recognizing travel allowances should reflect realistic costs based on destination and duration. Fragmented policies cause inequality, administrative complexity, and public perception concerns. A unified framework for Executive Council members and civil servants enhances transparency, fairness, and administrative efficiency while maintaining the Island Council's authority to adopt separate rules. Hereby resolves that the Island Council instructs the Executive Council to draft, codify, and present to the Island Council for adoption a unified travel and per diem framework for Executive Council members, civil servants, and staff. This framework shall replace the Executive Council decision of 24th February 2011, number 154-2011, and the unified framework shall include at minimum standardized per diem amounts, to also include the transportation allowance be raised to $50 per travel day, separate from the per diem, a mandatory travel insurance for all official travel, and as well as travel class approvals and exceptions. Also directs the Executive Council to ensure all related costs are reflected under the appropriate budget lines: Executive Council budget, official travel and representation, and personal budget for civil servants, training and official travel, and the costs are to be absorbed within already approved budgets. Also requires semi-annual reporting by the Executive Council to the Island Council on implementation, usage, approvals, expenditures under this framework. Confirms the separation of Island Council travel rules. The Island Council shall adopt its own separate travel ordinance in accordance with the WALBEST requirements, and the Island Registrar's Office will coordinate the drafting and presentation of that ordinance. And the effective date and the legal consistency, the unified travel and per diem framework for the Executive Council members and civil servants shall remain consistent with applicable best statutory travel regulations. The unified travel and per diem framework shall enter into effect by the first quarter of 2026, and after the Executive Council has finalized and formally adopted the framework, and it has been adopted by the Island Council, and it goes over to the order of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Island Council member Mr. Every. Before I give it to the Island Council to discuss and debate the motion presented, as government portfolio holder, as you know, it's not my place to give a political voting advice, but I would like to address some of the legal, financial, and administrative, also feasibility aspects of the motion presented. So I have a few questions. Based on that, but before that, I'd like to make some general remarks about motions in general. As you know, as of late, but even in the future, there will be more motions presented and filed. But at times, the status of what a motion is a little bit confusing for the public in general. And so I'd like to just state that, for example, this motion mentions that the Island Council instructs the Executive Council, while a motion is actually less of a binding instruction, but more of a wish that the Island Council formulates towards the Executive Council. Ultimately, the decision stays with the Executive Council to carry out an adopted motion or not. So that's locally, but then also when we look towards in the European part of the Netherlands, in the second chamber, or also in the provinces. The role of the Island Council is more about setting the broader frameworks, and the Executive Council executes within those broad frameworks. This motion is very detailed in the executive tasks of the Executive Council. The Island Council is free to discuss anything and also file any motion and vote on it. So, some general remarks. And then more specifically, I'd like to, first of all, the finance. The motion states that costs are to be absorbed within already approved budgets. However, the suggested adjustments, including higher per diem rates, transportation allowances, the possibility for broader eligibility for premium or business travel will result in an increase in total travel-related expenditures. Given that the Island Council holds the budgetary mandate, clarification is needed on how these additional costs will be covered. So my first question is, will the Council indicate which budget lines should be decreased to accommodate the higher costs? And the second one is, or is it the intention to limit or reduce the volume of travel to offset these increases within the existing budget allocation?
Yeah, for the first question, it's mentioned in the four, official travel and representation, and so the Executive Council budget, and the personal budget, training and official travel for civil servants. Okay.
Then the motion mentions that travel allowances for civil servants must comply with the Reisambtenaren Wet, Article 5, and the Regeling Buitenlandse Dienstreizen, which permits business class travel for flights of 6 hours or more. When we looked it up, the mentioned Article 5 only stipulates if a portion of the business trip within the base location that connects to a portion of the trip by boat or plane is made using a private motor vehicle or moped, compensation of $37 per kilometer travel will be provided. Did you mean?
No, it was the article. That's why I did not read it, and I did not update the motion itself. It's Article 3, and it's based on. It's an old article which references from the Netherlands about the travel for civil servants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when we look into that, the travel allowances for civil servants must comply with that. The second regulation does not exist anymore. The first regulation is only applicable to civil servants of the national government who fall under an entirely different framework. So the word must comply is a little difficult. And
what do you suggest, Governor? The framework is how you say, a whole framing. The idea is to formulate a travel policy for civil servants as well as the executive council that also falls in line with what the national government is doing. So
then it's the unification there between the executive, the island, and the civil servant.
Correct.
So then, okay. And then, because also it's stated that the registrar will also have to, as you stated, the island's registrar. The island council shall adopt its own separate travel ordinance in accordance with the World Best requirements. So then, that's also a separate one will be developed. Okay. And then, well, another challenge here is that the executive council decision cannot be adopted by the island council. That's a separate. Both councils have their own powers and responsibilities. So the island can control the executive council decision, but the executive council can't make a decision.
Yeah, I agree.
The wording needs to,
I agree with you 100% because I also looked at the same document that was approved in 2011, where the decision was made to also include the island council, which I found also was not in compliance with, I believe, the island council is the highest body, the executive council making a decision. So that's why I created this motion so that it's clear on the levels of representation who's doing what, who's in charge of what.
Yeah. No, that's clear. So then, like in the latter part of it, number 6, that the island council should develop it. When this was developed in 2011, at that time we were, just 3 months, 4 months into being a public entity. So at that time, we did it that way. But since then, we 14 years further, and the island council could have 14 years done it, but it worked for those years, so that's why the island council, I guess, left it that way. But if the island council wishes to change it, that is the right of the island council. Then the other thing is in the number 3, the travel class. As we all know, here in this region of the world, first class does not exist. It's business class. I think you mean business class. I don't think any other airlines have a first class, unless we do like other islands in the region with Dubai and everything other place. First class. So those are just my things. I leave it up to the council to further deliberate on the motion.
Chairman, I saw we are back again with this thing. If we want to bring the role, Commissioner Sagos, and justify that 2011 when we brought this together and now. But I want for sure to be stepping up. Twice when I was commissioner, I traveled business class. We didn't pay for it. Mrs. Belgrave wanted me to go to Holland, and that was the only way to open. The seats open, and my secretary, Ms. Granger, can testify to that. And lately, we all have been traveling in economic zone, a comfort zone, right? Because with my problem, with my needs, I have to do that. You know what I mean? I don't care at times where I sit after the plane, one plane, the train takes us there, after that, we just safe and sound. That's my luck, you know what I mean? So after I reach there safe and sound with help of all Almighty, And when I said, I for sure won't sit in business class. I said, it happened twice, like I said, because they wanted me there. That was the only reason. Yeah. I mean,
Point of clarification. Can I?
yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
First you want
No,
specifically on hands or?
No, just for the record, in the motion itself, I also mentioned in the notes in regards to the premium travel, it refers to business class or the equivalent, offering enhanced comfort, rider seating, extra legroom, etc. And it's in the travel class approvals and exceptions, it's also divided into the different roles, staff, standard, first class, maybe I should have mentioned a premium comfort, or premium or business class. And the different options, so if you want to upgrade, it's also allowed. Any external organizations that's providing the travel for you is also allowed. You can, but the only thing is if you're traveling for business class, that it has to be with justification. It does not say that you can't. It's just you have to have a good reason for why. Because I mean, it is public funding, whether it's we're paying for it or somebody else is paying for it. You know, so that's the reasoning behind that. Just to answer.
Right, other Councilor Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just, because when I received the motion, I just didn't understand the rationale behind it. And then afterwards, you know, when I look at it, I realize specifically, you know, it's addressing the executive part of the organization and legislative part of the organization. And I have to question, you know, if we are overstepping our rules. Because I think part of it is like you mentioned earlier, that the rules were made, well, the current decree also includes Island Council.
Correct.
So I don't think that we should then say, well, because the current rules include Island Council, that no, you have to go and make a document for yourself. You understand? So I think that's number one. It's the job of the executive branch to control the executive branch. It's our, well, to regulate the executive branch. Control the executive branch is our responsibility. So I think that's something that I think it's not clear to me what exactly is the rationale behind this. And then I think the governor asked a very good question, and I think because of our role in terms of financial oversight is important. How much does it cost if you pass this motion? That's very important because it clearly has financial implications, and I don't think, considering we just passed the budget last month, that we should be making passing motions that we don't really necessarily take the financial impact into consideration. Also, going back to what Dr. said, you mentioned that you're instructing the executive council to retract the decision of its own, and I don't think that that's exactly the job of the Island Council to say, hey, you have this procedure, and then you have to change. I don't know if you have the legal right to do that. Going back to, especially when it doesn't concern legislation. Some of the periods where we get the mandate to make that instruction. And then the question is, where does the current system fail based on fairness, equality, or transparency? Because you mentioned that, yes, quite a bit.
There's my questions. All right. The first question was about there was a lot of questions. So can you
The first question
give me a summary of your
yes,
questions?
the first question was about where did you, what was the rationale behind it?
Yeah, the rationale actually triggered. It was triggered during one of our trips to the Netherlands, where I saw we were all together, and at a certain moment I saw a difference where one of the executive council members headed to business class, and everybody else, the department heads and everyone else went to the back of the plane. I, for one, I'm not looking for first class, so that was the actual trigger. And I asked questions about it, you know, because this thing happened, I think around the beginning of this year, no, actually last year. And so I inquired about it, and the response I received was not really satisfactory. So I kept digging deeper and deeper to find out, okay, what's the rationale behind why is this done? And it was, okay, it was a decision that the Nazi Act was taken care of. So, okay, where's the documentation for that? Or where's the framework for that? You know, why is there a distinction? Why? And then, you know, I inquired a little bit deeper, and I got the document where it was, the decision was made in 2011, and I was like, okay, this is not fair in my purview, you know. So I said, okay, we need to really come with something that I believe is fair for everyone across the board. I mean, I do work for the national government, and based on that, I feel that based on that whole arrangement that we have, I feel it's done fairly, where everyone is treated the same. Everyone is also free to upgrade if they want to, and it doesn't mean that you can't upgrade. It's just, it has to be justified. So if I ask a question about it and there's no, why can't there be an answer to it? So it's based, that's the reasoning behind that, the first question. And my second, to that question, not to question for question, but do you not think that almost 15 years later, something should have been updated in regards to the travel policy within Saba, the government?
I'm not saying that they don't have to have an update. I'm just saying I'm asking whether or not it's our job to update things like it's also travel policy.
Is it their job to update our travel policy?
Clearly not.
Exactly.
Yeah, explain.
So this is the reason. This is also.
But also, if you think about it, right?
No,
just because you're saying that you say it, that they shouldn't. Our responsibility is our policy. Their responsibility.
I'm saying.
So they don't have responsibility for us.
Correct. I'm saying.
Correct. Right?
I'm saying.
No. It's not what I'm saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, the governor mentioned it that this was a decision that was made right after 10-10-10, which is we're a green organization, growing. However, here we are 15 years later, and nobody thought about, hey, let's actually put things in accordance, make things a level playing field, and also within the law.
So what shouldn't be the first job then, that we pass our own travel policy?
Well, that was also a question to the registrar's office, but the registrar's office is, as we all know, is just, the registrar's office is this person right here sitting, and that's a little bit too much to ask. That's why she's also.
There's another mechanism.
But let me finish. So there's other things happening at the moment where she is receiving assistance. I shouldn't refer to her as she, but the registrar's office is receiving assistance in the form of, from coaching in regards to the same. That's why it's mentioned that we are working on our own.
But also, we could also ask under the baseline. That's also an option. So then the office specifically can say, hey, we like under, and then we can establish our own policy first, rather than trying to tell the executive council, hey, we don't have policy, we should have one, but you do have one first.
We have to start somewhere, and I think if we're going
well,
to start,
then we should start with us.
Well, we're also working on us, so I think we can do things together. What was your other question?
The cost. How much does it cost?
How much does it cost? I did not do a cost calculation. I just mentioned that it should be taken off.
That's a very, because that's the most important part, I think, because if it does have additional costs, we should be passing motion that we're not aware of the implications.
But just for the sake of clarity, the motion also asks, orders, ask the executive council to actually come back with a codified document, a policy, then basically stated exactly. And in that should have the cost.
Yeah, but you're also instructing them to absorb the cost.
Yeah.
But how much is it? So you didn't do the research?
I did research.
Not on the amount.
Any other questions?
We haven't had a nice political.
What's the other question?
Not really the political basis of the executive council, that's why I was leaving this a little bit. But nonetheless,
How is the current system feel of fairness, equality, and transparency?
I think if you speak to the civil service, which I do have discussions with some of the civil service, and I'll be honest with you, the document that I mentioned, and I deliberately did not mention the amounts into the motion. It's in the motion. There's a reason why I did not deliberately, because I believe that some civil service, they're not aware of this. They just know this is what it is and that's it. And they feel that they cannot ask questions. I'm just going to state it like that. So that's the reasoning as well.
So what they feel, what exactly is the feel?
It's not being fairly, it's not being done fairly across the board.
And what's the unfair, well, which is another question, what's the unfair aspect of it?
Let me just give it to you this way. Those who make more should not receive more. That's basically, that's the gist of this motion. Those who receive more should not have to get more, right? It should be equal for everyone, right?
You're fired,
Correct.
right? And they don't have any difference in the fire department, at least anything?
The only difference in the fire department is the ranking system. If I travel the same way as one of my manscaped. There's no difference, right? So it's good that you brought up that point. I am a fireman. I'm a fire chief.
Yeah, and my question is there no difference? There are differences in an organization.
And ranking, of course.
And so there could be differences in an organization for various reasons.
Definitely. And
I think we shouldn't always want defining whether those differences are justified or they can be expressed. Or they can be expressed.
There are differences, and because of those differences and the position that you hold, it does not say that you cannot upgrade, you cannot request an upgrade. The motion is basically saying that you need to justify why you deserve an upgrade and why the sweeper does not.
And I don't know if the executive council considered upgrades aren't possible.
Who said it's not possible?
That's what you're saying.
No. It's possible, but you just have to justify why.
No, but is it not possible now?
Did you read the document of 2011? I should have included that into the attachments. With, if we can adjourn, we can have that printed out so that Mr. Charles can receive that copy.
It's a public document.
Yeah.
Well, I really
Yeah? Sure.
Councilman Charles, do you have any more questions?
I think we can do
We have another
Question.
other questions?
Just ask him an opinion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I was zooming out a little bit. So, I understand the reasoning behind the motion 100%, and yeah, especially the last thing that you said, because yeah, if you going on with minimum wage, you traveling, you getting the amount that you get, and you go into certain places, it is really not fair. But I will say that I think, based on the comments from the governor, maybe some things will be adjusted to make it a little bit clearer, especially for Mr. Charles even. But I think it is something that we need to look at and see then even how to get to the result that we want. So that's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Well, I think the result isn't necessarily emotion, to be fair. I think this could have been a conversation. Just hey, do you think there's a need to update your policy? I mean, you didn't come into the Island Council yesterday.
That is correct.
You know, and I haven't been a council member yesterday either. So we can all take responsibility for inaction or action. And I think in this case, it's a very heavy-handed instrument. for something that you could just say, hey, you know what? This is something that needs to be changed, and we can also.
Do you think that that's not the route that initially started? To find out about this?
I don't, to be very honest with you,
But that is the first question you should ask. You know, it's, okay, did you take those steps? I haven't
been to a meeting that you called where this was a discussion, other than today.
Well, you said it could have just been a conversation or a phone call.
Well, no, I said a conversation, I mean a formal conversation.
Yes, that's clear.
Is there any more need for discussion and deliberation on the motion? And can we proceed to voting on the motion?
And I have a question, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, Councilman Charles, can you clarify what you were just talking about the conversation, an official conversation?
Or like an information market, a request for a meeting with the executive council. That's right.
Okay.
Then we could have all stated as
Can we proceed then to a vote on the motion? Authorized to begin with item Councilmember
Mr. Chairman, I abstain from voting because I believe we should sit down and discuss this thing more.
You can't abstain from voting.
No.
Item Councilmember Charles.
I also vote. I also vote no.
Item Council Lady Ms. Sasha Matthews.
I vote for.
Item Councilmember Mr. Julio Avery.
I want to just motivate my vote, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm going to vote for. The reason why I'm voting for is because obviously my colleagues across the table don't feel there's a need to upgrade the system as it is at the moment, presently. And I find it's a very sad day because the civil service is the ones who actually would be the ones benefiting from this. And it's sad to see that you guys actually vote against this. And yeah, again, I said I vote for Mr. Chairman.
As you can see, the item council consists of 5 persons. There's only 4 present today, so there's 2 for, 2 against. So that means that this motion will have to come back at a second item council meeting at another time when there's a majority or odd number in the. Another time then we have to.
Maybe they can change their mind.
But before concluding it, saying so it has to conclude that it has to come again. But before that, I do think, as a suggestion, is that there could be a meeting called by the registrar together with the items and executive councils to go over the different things, because there are points in it that could be done and updated, and then also assistance could be provided to the registrar in point number 6, the one about the island council travel policy, the separate island council travel policy. So those things could be done at a meeting with the island council and the executive council.
A point of order.
Yes.
I just also wanted to clarify this idea about not disadvantaging versus continuing the idea of disadvantaging persons, because that's not what any one of us on this side stand for either.
That's not point of order. That's a point of
clarification. That's not what any of us on this side is, or anyone at this table stand for. So I think that creating that perspective or that perception, as you mentioned, emotion, is also uncalled for.
Point of. I think at the end of the day, as much as possible, we have to do what we have to do in the benefit of the population, the people of this island who we are elected and appointed to represent. With that, this motion will come back in a subsequent island council meeting. With that, because it had 2 votes for and 2 votes against. So with that, we now move to agenda point number 8, the closing. With that, I'd like to thank everyone for your presence here this afternoon and have a good evening. Thank you.